Hey guys, checking if you can hear me. Hopefully Camilla can tell me if the audio is a little bit better. Okay, finally. So just to catch up on what was happening yesterday, I was having trouble with my camera, which is working now, but I don't trust the trust OBS, and I found that I have a video capture card, so some of you may not understand the whole process. It took me a while before I understood it. But I have a video capture card, which, see, this is already not working. I'm having so much trouble, guys. This is driving me mad. Hey guys, it's back to the webcam. Sadly, this is going to be the best quality we can get. See, now if we were using my other camera, you'd see way more detail than this. But unfortunately, this is just going to have to do. I am still recording all of this with my DSLR. I'm just going to have to end up putting the DSLR videos up. Okay, so it is now 25 to 4 in the morning, so that was a whole 40 minutes wasted. Seriously. Anyways, I'm gonna get over it. So what we did yesterday is we did something different for the background. We decided to use a black ink to fill in the background instead of the pan pastel. And I do think the black ink is much better. It's a lot darker. It dries really quick. My paper did eventually go nice and flat, which is what I wanted. It was very warped when it got that wet, and but it has flattened out quite nicely, so it worked out okay. We also used an etching tool in the entire face of the owl before we applied any color, and then that just helps with all the details. You can see the tiny little feathers, and yeah, it turned out really nicely. I'll be back in a sec. help if I put an SD card in my DSLR to record. Okay. Thank you guys so much for all your patience. It's really supposed to be simple. It's all supposed to be easy. Okay, so we used an etching tool in the face, and then afterwards we applied our colored pencils. And when we applied our solvent, we used a piece of tissue paper instead of a brush, so that we would just brush the surface of the face of the paper, so that it didn't push the color into the crevices that we created with the etching tool. Okay. See, Unmasked Art, he uses a Mac, I think. So he uses a different capture card, which is much better than mine. So the issue is the capture card, and the issue is also my laptop. It's just a simple laptop, and I don't think it can deal with all the power that is needed when you're doing live streaming. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to keep building up the face, and then we'll eventually start working on the body. So Jody, I just got your message on Patreon, but it looks like you're here now, so you're all sorted. Okay. So I'm going to keep working on the colors in the face. One thing I'd like to do is I would like to make some of the areas a little bit whiter than what they are. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure that I have all my colors down, because that needs to be like a final touch up. So I'm going to use my 50% French Grey PC1072. I'm creating quite a shadow on there, aren't I? So just paying attention to my reference, making sure that I'm getting the right values in there. So in terms of all the shadows and that around the face, I feel like I've done pretty well. So you can get a sort of three-dimensional feel, and once we bring those highlights out using the titanium white, it will bring it out even more. So the left side of the face is actually a fair bit darker, so I'm going to use a darker color. I'm going to use the 70% warm grey PC1056 and go a little further with these shadows. Yeah, that's right, Alex. You just have to keep observing and gradually add those layers. One step at a time and not be intimidated. So just have a proper look and make sure you're answering some questions to yourself. Like, do I need to go darker? Am I going too dark? Do I need to work on my lighter values? The more you talk to yourself, the more you will become increasingly better at observing, because you're making yourself aware of the questions that you're asking. If you're really struggling, Alex, you need to use your swatches. So if you really want to find a value, take your image. I know it's very reflective on the screen, but then compare it to your swatches and you'll be able to find which is the darkest area for that value, and then you just apply that pencil. And then you can also compare it to your reference to see whether you're going too dark or not. So that would probably be the easiest way. That's good. So now I'm going to use my black. I'm going to make sure I have a very sharp point. And I'm going to put in some tiny strokes of dark feathers using the sharp point. And I'm using my polychromos for this because it's the best pencil to keep a sharp point for longer. Define the beak a little more. Yes, Alex, you're right. I usually, when I use the Prisma for detail, that is only if I am applying a lighter color over my layers, because I know that I can't apply light oil-based colors over my layers because they're too transparent. So if I needed to add a white, I would use my Prisma, my wax-based pencil to do that. because the polychromos one wouldn't show up because it's too translucent. So I only use my prismas for detail if the color is lighter than the layers underneath it. Alex, I never leave the white paper unless I'm leaving a blank background, but otherwise I never leave the white paper for the highlights. I would cover everything. So Alex, for the body, if I wanted to add a lighter color on top of this, I would need to use my wax-based pencils because the oil-based pencils will be translucent. But if I'm using my darker colors, then I'd probably stick to my polychromos pencils. Hope that helps. Well, when you say look smoother covering everything, it looks smooth when you use solvent after you've covered it with layers of pencils. But it does look better when you cover your surface of paper because you're working up those layers. So, I don't know. I guess it's up to you if you want to leave something white. But generally I don't. And if I make something too dark, then I just use a different way of lightening it up. So I would use, for instance, the titanium white, which we're going to use soon, or I would use a watercolor ground to apply the texture back to the paper, and it's white, and then I could layer pencils over the top of that. So there's various ways of saving your drawing if you end up going way too dark. Okay, so I want this entire wing pretty much up to here to be black, so it's completely blending in with the background. So I'm going to come back in with my black ink. Okay. Hey, Landy, when I started, I pretty much, the first set I got was the big set of Prismacolor pencils. Because I got inspired by watching other YouTube videos, and I wanted to use the same supplies as what I was seeing in the YouTube videos. So no, I didn't use cheap pencils first. Okay, so that's almost dry already. So I'm going to use my Warm Grey 5, number 274. No, I'm going to use my black. To soften out those pointy bits that I just created with the ink. I must say I was a little over enthusiastic yesterday because when I woke up for yesterday's live stream, I felt fine. I was awake, I was alert, I was all good. And then I was like, oh, I'll probably feel the same the next time I do it. So that's why I was so keen to wake up again today at this time of the morning, thinking that I would feel the same, but not so much. It was not that easy getting up this morning. I felt like a real zombie. Plus, I'm sitting here in my PJs and everything, so I was like, no need to see my face. I am just going to get straight into recording. Well, so I thought. Yeah, that's right. I spoil myself though, because I usually go to bed at around 10 p.m. and then I only wake up at like 8, or I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I say goodbye to my boyfriend, and then I make him breakfast and lunch and everything, and then I go back to bed afterwards and wake up at like 8 or 9. So I get a lot of sleep. Okay, I'm going to add some warmer tones. So I'm going to use the Raw Umber number 180. Adding those warm tones makes a nice difference. So I also want to add a little bit of the red tones using the Terracotta PC944. Stephanie, no. Applying ink to the paper does not affect the tooth. And it works well with colored pencils as well. So I think it's probably something I'll use again. I'm thinking that I prefer it over the pan pastels for a background, because it's definitely more pigmented and it's not as messy in terms of, because I put my hand on my paper all the time, so it's not as messy when it comes to moving color around. I'm going to use a little bit of the white. There's a section over here that's a little more highlighted. Still using my white. I want to emphasize any highlights on the bottom of the face, and this is going to help me create a little bit more of a textured look among some of these dark areas. Thanks, Marie. Yeah, well, it won't be as long as yesterday's live stream. And I won't lie, I'm looking forward to going back to bed. But I won't until I feel that this is finished fairly. I was going to put a little firefly in this corner, but I think I'll do that on my own later. Okay, now I feel like I got the face dark enough, but the highlights aren't light enough, and I can't get them light enough using my white pencil. So I'm going to use a bit of the titanium white and the touch-up texture from brush and pencil. Marie, I would leave the details as they are, because I've got the pigment that I want, and I don't want to put more solvent on the face because I don't want my etched lines to disappear. So I'm comfortable for where it's at, and you can't see, it doesn't have a crayon look. You can't see the texture of the paper, so I'm satisfied with the amount of solvent I have on there. I don't feel like I need to add any more. Okay, so I put a little bit in the lid like that, and then you take some of the touch-up texture and then I'm going to mix it with a real small brush. Which is going to make a nice little white paste. And then I'm going to use the very tip of my brush and work on some of these little highlights. Yes, Jody, it's a water-based acrylic ink. Yeah, Nanette, gouache would work the same. I just don't have any. It dries pretty quick. This is really such a simple and fun way to add those final highlights. Yeah, Alex, you could also use gouache instead of this for highlighting. Be careful getting the powder on your surface because it'll make it white. Yes, the gouache is very opaque, so it would be a great one to use. I really like how the beaks turned out. It needs to be a little bit darker under the beak. So I'm using the 70% warm grey PC1056. Okay, I really like that. So let's take this masking tape off and have a good look. that looks so nice. I think that looks beautiful. So when the light's not reflecting on it like that, it looks really, really nice. I'm very satisfied with that. The eyes turned out nice. Just making those highlights just a little bit lighter, and using the indigo blue in the middle of the black definitely made a big difference. So now to sign it, I will use my white pencil. Sign it here. Actually no, I think I'm going to use a gel pen. Find what I've done with them. Okay, here's one. So when that dries, so it's very white, I'll put a almost kind of glaze in it. Okay, I can't zoom in, but let me see. I'll put the camera on autofocus, and then maybe it will focus on it when I come closer. No. I don't think you can. It would have been fine if I was using the other camera. But yes, once the reflection is gone, it looks really, really nice. So now that that's dry, I will use my 50% French grey and just go over the white so it doesn't look quite as white as that. I'll use a even darker color. So I'll use the Van Dyke Brown 176. Maybe that will make it die down a bit more. Yes. And then I probably won't add the firefly, I'll probably just leave it at this. because I like it and I think it actually turned out really nice. And it was pretty quick how we went from what we did yesterday to the detailing of today. So all in all, so yesterday we streamed, we streamed for almost 4 hours, but I'd say I probably drew for 3.5 hours. And then this morning we only really got started about an hour ago. So 4.5 hours total to do this. And this is the size of my hand, so the owl is quite small, but this is just an average A4 piece of paper. So it is still a nice size. So thank you guys so much for bearing with me. I do have this entire thing on recorded with my DSLR. If any of you try this tutorial for yourself and you find you're having trouble, let me know and I will convert everything from the DSLR into one long video. It'll just take a long time to upload because it'll be a very big file, because it's not uploading while it's streaming, sort of like we're doing here. But I will happily provide that for you if you find you're having trouble with these videos, with the live stream videos. So my task before the next stream is to seriously sort my stuff out so that I can use my HD camera to record this in the next one. And I'm just gonna do a crap load of test videos before the time so that we don't struggle like we did again this morning, because I feel like it's just so unprofessional. And that is not what I want to be doing. I want it to be easy. I don't want it to be a drag. And when you guys are on, I want to be on time and show you guys what I want to show you without having any technical troubles. But thanks guys for tuning in. It was really nice. It ended up okay. And now I feel like I'm wide awake, so I'm probably not going to be able to sleep anyways. But yeah, so what we've learned out of this entire thing is that we can use a black ink for the background quite easily. Mine is a water-based ink. It doesn't have any odor or smell at all. It's actually the inks that I usually use for my airbrushing. So you can use a black ink or any color ink for the background if you want to. Pencils apply to it quite nicely. It doesn't affect the texture of your paper. So that's another alternative to filling in a background quickly. If you don't have pan pastels, or if you don't want to use your pan pastels because they can be quite messy. Also, pan pastels are quite matte, so they do have a they almost look like they have a bit of a I don't know, a misty hue over it, if that makes sense, especially if you photograph it. So at least with the ink you don't have that. You do have the reflection of the light, but once you see it without the reflection, you can see just how nice it's turned out. And then we used our color swatches to find our palette, and then once we found our pencils, we put all the other pencils away and only kept the pencils that we needed in front of us. And then at least that doesn't make it look so overwhelming when you have all your pencils in front of you. So this was our color palette from what we picked from our swatches, and that is how we decided on our colors before we even started, and then we put all the rest of the pencils away. The other stuff that I did use a bit of solvent. We didn't use much. When we did use it, we used it with a piece of tissue and we just lightly touched the surface of the drawing because we didn't want to get our etched details to disappear. But before we added our color, we used an etching tool, so just anything that's got a nice sharp point like this will work fine. And we etched out the texture of all the feathers and that in the face before we added the pencils, and that just gave it a realistic look, and we didn't have to create the texture with our pencils because the texture was already created for us using the etching needle. So that is also what we did. And then for highlighting, we did use the white wax-based pencils, and we used the titanium white powder and touch-up texture from brush and pencil to just make some of those highlights even whiter, because we couldn't get them quite as white as we wanted with the white wax-based pencil. The reference photo is from iStock Photos. I do have I have an account with them, so I can download a lot of images. So if you guys in the future just want me to get the image to you, just let me know, and you don't have to pay for the image yourself. I love the amount of references they have, and I love the quality of their photos. As much as I'd like to use everybody else's photos, it's not always the quality that I'd like, or the composition. So that's why I just take the easy way out and pretty much pick from iStock Photos. But like I said, if you guys need the image and you don't want to pay for it, just message me in Patreon and I will happily send it to you guys to use. I will always have the outline version and the blurred version available as an attachment along with the Patreon post, and that's you guys can print or look at from your iPads and work on it that way. With the streams, usually I'm going to try 2 or 3 weeks ahead of a stream to let you know when it is coming up, so that I can list the materials that I'm going to use. On occasion I do change my mind, like with this one I changed my mind with the pan pastels and decided to use the ink instead, which turned out to work out really well. So that's I'll try not to change my mind too much, so that if you guys are trying it with me, the material list will be staying the same. But I did check yesterday to see if anyone was doing it with me, and nobody was, so I was pretty much okay with going ahead with the ink. But I will definitely be considerate. If someone is going to do it with me on the day that I do a live stream, I will not change the materials that I listed in the description of the post. So that is it for today, and I will see you guys next month again. So the next stream is going to be, let me get my calendar. The next stream is going to be on the 6th of September, and that's going to be the US stream. So I think for those that are in the UK or in South Africa, it's going to be real early morning hours for you. But the next one that's suitable for the UK and South Africa is going to be on the 14th, well, the 14th for me, but the 13th of September for you guys. At about the same time. So the 13th of September, yep. So that'll be the next one for you guys, and hopefully I will have my shit sorted out so that we could stream in HD and you guys can see the details much more clearly. And thanks guys for being so kind and so patient with today's stream. You really do make me feel so much better. So I will see you guys next month. So bye.